Shrinekeeper, who is the last remaining god of Anor Londo.
Last god of Anor Londo? Rest at the bonfire, and let me tell you the tragic story of Gwyndolin, the Dark Sun.
What foolishness! Why would a blade of the Darkmoon trespasseth upon the great lord's tomb? Mark the words of myself, Gwyndolin. Thou shalt not go unpunished.
When we speak of the gods of Anor Londo, we think of Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, his radiant daughter Guinevere, and the great golden city of fire and light. But among the gods there was one who stood apart, the last-born child of Gwyn, a god of shadows, of illusions, and of the cold light of the moon. This was Gwyndolin, the Dark Sun. Born frail, his body twisted and serpentine, Gwyndolin was seen as weak and repulsive by his kin. Unlike his father, who embodied the blazing sun, Gwyndolin was bound to the power of the moon, mysterious, fleeting, and cold. For this reason, Gwyn decreed that his son would be raised as a daughter. Dressed in women's robes, granted a ring that would shape his movement into something more delicate and graceful. Gwyndolin lived not as himself, but as an image forced upon him. And yet, despite this harsh upbringing, he adored his father. He wore a crown modeled after the sun itself, infused with his own Darkmoon magic, hoping to live up to Gwyn's legacy. Over time, he grew into a powerful sorcerer, wielding a golden bow that fired arrows of moonlight, and a catalyst of faith that blurred the line between miracle and sorcery. Statues of him appeared even in distant Irithyll, proof of his growing influence. But the Age of Fire was not eternal. Gwyn burned himself in the kiln. His firstborn was exiled for treachery, and Guinevere abandoned Anor Londo. One by one, the gods left the shining city behind. Only Gwyndolin remained, the fragile child of Gwyn, alone in a city of empty halls and silver knights. Unable to rule directly, he created an illusion of Guinevere, radiant and kind, to mask her absence. Through this false goddess, Gwyndolin continued his father's will, guiding undead toward the Lord Vessel and the linking of the flame. An entire religion was built around this illusion, a lie maintained to keep hope alive, to keep the Age of Fire burning just a little longer. This was his role, to guard the last remnants of the Age of Fire, not with armies, but with illusions and faith. But Gwyndolin was not only a keeper of illusions, he was also a punisher. The god founded the Covenant of the Blades of the Darkmoon, knights sworn to hunt down sinners who defied the gods. Their blue-eye orbs let them invade across time and space, while Velka, goddess of sin, recorded the guilty in her book. Every ear they cut from their victims was brought back as proof to Gwyndolin, their cold and distant master. Through this, he became a god of fear, vengeance, and judgment. And so, hidden in the mausoleum of his father, Gwyndolin ruled Anor Londo from the shadows, the last god of the city, maintaining a broken order long after the gods had gone. But his story does not end in Lordran. Generations later, the remnants of Anor Londo's faithful would travel to Drangleic, founding the civilization of Haida. There, the memory of Gwyndolin endured. Fragments of blue-eye orbs carried by knights, traditions of moon worship that evolved into the Way of Blue and the Blue Sentinels. Even as his name faded, his covenant lived on, reshaped, but never truly gone. In time, Gwyndolin himself changed. No longer content to remain in shadow, he abandoned the ring that forced him into femininity and claimed his true place as Gwyn's heir. He declared himself chief deity, built the city of Irithyll on the ruins of Anor Londo, and turned it into a kingdom of moonlit worshippers. There, he was honored in cathedrals and lived quietly among his people, guarded by silver knights and Darkmoon blades. He even raised Yorshka, a forgotten crossbreed child, as his sister and priestess. But prosperity cannot last forever. Into Irithyll came Sullivan, a gifted sorcerer who discovered the profaned flame and seized power through corruption. As Gwyndolin grew ill and weak, Sullivan struck, imprisoning Yorshka in her tower and taking Gwyndolin hostage within the cathedral of Anor Londo. Through him, Sullivan ruled as pontiff, a tyrant cloaked in stolen divine authority. It was in this state, frail, chained, and broken, that Aldrich, the devourer of gods, came to Anor Londo. Drawn by visions of a deep sea age, Aldrich sought to consume gods themselves, to devour their power and memories. He descended upon Gwyndolin and began to feast. The once proud god of the moon was reduced to prey, his body twisted and puppeteered by Aldrich as he continued to gorge on divine flesh. When an unkindled at last arrived, they faced Aldrich in the cathedral. But it was Gwyndolin's body they saw, casting moonlit sorceries even as he was consumed. And when Aldrich finally fell, Gwyndolин's torment ended. The dark sun, last god of Anor Londo, passed at last into death.
Gwyndolin's story is one of duality and futility.
Born male but raised female, he embodies the tension of identity versus expectation. He clung to illusions, yet his own body was monstrous and twisted. He was the last god, yet worshipped powers, the moon, Velka, Seath, that set him apart from his divine kin. Born unwanted, forced into an identity not his own, abandoned by his kin, and consumed in the end by a monster wearing his body like a puppet. Yet, through illusion, faith, and vengeance, he upheld the will of his father for centuries. He kept the Age of Fire alive long after it should have ended, and though forgotten by history, his shadow lingers still in the blades who hunt by moonlight. The dark sun has set, but the echoes of his moon remain.